I was 36 when it happened. Now, as I'm telling you this, I'm well into my 40s, with more gray in my hair and a lot less naivety in my heart. But that night, I was just a newlywed, glowing like a fool. It was our first real romantic dinner as husband and wife. The Grand Oak Room was one of those restaurants you only ever see in movies. Dark wood, crystal chandeliers, waiters who glide like ghosts. I remember sitting there, in my best dress, my hands wrapped around a cold champagne flute, and thinking, Lydia, you made it. You finally made it. For most of my life, I'd been the girl behind the counter at the flower shop, the one who made everyone else's weddings beautiful, everyone else's anniversaries memorable. My parents died 2 years before all this, and after that, the apartment felt like a museum of their absence. I had my work, my plants, my little rituals. But at night, the silence in that flat could crush your ribs. Then Elias walked into my life. Tall, elegant, early 40s with just enough gray at his temples to look important, not old. He had come into my shop to buy flowers for his mother, and somehow never left. He listened when I spoke about my parents, remembered my favorite flowers, brought me daisies instead of cliché roses. When he called me my wife after our small courthouse wedding, the word felt like a soft blanket around my shoulders. That night at the restaurant, he sat across from me in his perfect suit, the manager greeting him by name, staff treating him like royalty. It made me proud, in a silly way. I wasn't used to being with a man people looked up to. Lydia, why are you smiling like that? He asked, his eyes warm under the chandelier light. Did I say something funny? No, I shook my head, tasting the cold fizz of champagne. I'm just looking at you and realizing how lucky I am. At the time, that sentence was the purest truth I knew. He put his warm hand over mine. I'm the lucky one. Women like you don't exist anymore. Mom keeps asking when we'll finally move your things into our little family fortress. We had started calling our future shared apartment that, a family fortress. It sounded cozy, safe, unbreakable. The manager came by again, almost bowing over Elias, checking if everything was perfect. I remember feeling a hint of embarrassment at how deferential he was, but Elias enjoyed it with that quiet self-confidence that had charmed me from day one. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and for a split second, something irritated flickered in his eyes. "Forgive me, darling," he said, pushing his chair back. "Business, very persistent people. I'll just step into the lobby where it's quieter. 2 minutes. Order your favorite dessert. Something with raspberries, yes?" He kissed my forehead and walked away. I watched him go, admiring the clean lines of his suit, the way he moved like he always knew exactly where he was going in life. I thought that was what safety looked like. I let my eyes wander around the room. Soft music, quiet clinking of glasses. At the table right next to me, an elderly woman sat alone with a cup of tea. She wasn't really drinking it, just stirring slowly, staring at me. I smiled politely. She didn't smile back. Her face bothered me, familiar somehow, like someone from a past life. I squinted, mentally leafing through faces I'd seen at the shop. Then it clicked. Gerbera Elsa, the sweet old lady who always bought orange gerbera daisies and wished us a good day. We used to call her that affectionately in the back room. Only this was not the gentle, soft woman I knew. The moment our eyes locked in recognition, she moved. She pushed herself up with effort, her hands shaking, glanced quickly toward the restaurant entrance where Elias had disappeared, then leaned over my table. I smelled valerian and something else, fear. "Sweetheart, listen to me very carefully," she whispered, voice trembling. Her face was white, her eyes wide with a terror that felt contagious. She dug into her worn handbag and shoved something into my palm. It was a thick wad of cash, bound with a rubber band. "He's a monster," she gasped, her bony fingers clamping around my hand. "My daughter married him. She's not alive anymore. Do you understand? She vanished. Call a cab now. Run through the window in the restroom. Run, honey, run." For a moment, my mind went completely blank. I stared at her, the money heavy in my hand. Was this some kind of sick joke? A hallucination? Was she confusing me with someone else? I think you've got the wrong person," I stammered. "No." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm not mistaken. Run." She let go of my hand, turned away, and shuffled unsteadily toward the exit. I watched her go, my heart hammering, my thoughts in tatters. Then, I looked toward the entrance, and my blood ran cold. 2 men had just stepped in. Big, shaved heads, thick leather jackets that didn't fit the elegant restaurant at all. They didn't look for a table. They looked around. Their eyes stopped on me. I had never seen them before. These were not cousins Elias had mentioned. These were not relatives. They were something else. In that moment, everything inside me shifted. The money in my bag, the old woman's terror, the way those men watched me like they were checking an item off a list. Instinct took over. I grabbed my purse, stuffed the cash inside, knocked over my chair, and bolted toward the hallway leading to the restrooms. Behind me, I heard a gasp, a muttered, "What on earth?" But I didn't care. My whole body had one command: get away. Now. I slammed into the ladies' room, locked the heavy door, and pressed my back against it, chest heaving. What was happening? What did I walk into? A cab. A window. The old woman's words banged around my skull. My hands shook so badly I dropped my phone twice before I could open the taxi app. I ordered the nearest car to my flower shop, the one place that still felt like it belonged to me. Then I looked up. The window was a small, frosted pane high near the ceiling. I climbed onto the marble counter to reach it. Bars. Thick, iron bars bolted into the wall. No way out. My phone buzzed. White Ford Focus, 3 minutes away. 3 minutes, and I was locked in. I jumped down, turned toward the door, and froze. The handle moved. The door opened a crack. In the doorway stood the restaurant manager, the same man who had been all smiles toward Elias not long ago, except now his face was stone cold. "Excuse me, I need to get out," I muttered, trying to slide past him. "I'm afraid you'll have to wait a moment, madam," he said evenly, not moving. And then I heard it. From just behind him, in the hallway, Elias's voice. "It's all right, Mr. Sterling," he said calmly. "My wife is just a bit worked up. Long week. I'll talk to her myself." The manager nodded, stepped back into the corridor, and pulled the door shut. Then I heard it. The dry, metallic click of a key turning from the outside. They had locked me in. In that instant, all the warmth, all the tenderness, the comfort of being his wife died. Outside, his voice floated through the door, gentle, reasonable, practiced. "Lydia, please open up. You're scaring people. You know how your migraines make you act." Migraine. He was already rewriting my reality. I looked at myself in the restroom mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wild. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. But she wasn't helpless. Not yet. My gaze landed on the red box on the wall near the door, a glass-covered emergency button, the fire alarm. For a second, I hesitated. False alarm, drama, public shame. Then another thought came clearer than anything else. If I don't cause chaos right now, I might not walk out of this building alive. I grabbed my purse, raised the heavy metal buckle, and smashed it into the glass. The first time, it cracked. The second time, it shattered. I slammed the button. The world exploded. A deafening siren screamed through the small, tiled room, bouncing off every surface, drilling into my skull. It spread through the restaurant, through the corridors, over Elias's soothing lies. On the other side of the door, voices rose in panic. "What the hell?" the manager yelled. "It's a false alarm. My wife—" Elias tried to insist, but nobody listened now. And then, as if fate itself intervened, I smelled it. Smoke. Faint at first, drifting from the vents. Something in the kitchen had actually started to burn in the confusion. Now panic was real. Keys jingled outside. The lock turned. The door flew open. The manager started to bark something at me, but I shoved past him with all the strength fear gives a human being and sprinted into the corridor. The dining room was chaos. People pushing, shouting, grabbing bags and jackets, looking for exits. In the haze of smoke and bodies, I saw him, in the middle of the room, searching the crowd. Our eyes met for a split second. There was no love there. No worry, just cold, sharp rage, like a man watching a piece of property trying to escape. I turned away and dove into the crowd. I don't remember how I got outside. I just remember cold night air, the wail of the alarm turning distant, and my lungs burning as I ran down the street. My phone buzzed. "Your driver is waiting." The white Ford Focus was parked half a block away. I jumped in, breathless. "You okay, miss?" the driver asked, eyes flicking to my pale face in the rearview mirror. "I will be," I lied. "Please just drive. Fast. To Lydia's Flowers." The city lights slid by as I pressed my forehead to the cold window, the old woman's warning echoing in my head. My daughter married him. She's not alive anymore. When we reached the shop, I paid the driver with banknotes from Elsa's wad, money that suddenly felt less like kindness and more like a lifeline. Inside my shop, the familiar scent of soil, roses, and lilies wrapped around me. I locked the door with every deadbolt I had, went to the back room, and opened my laptop with trembling fingers. If Elias was dangerous, I needed to make sure he couldn't touch my money. I still trusted the system, the bank, the digital numbers that said I existed. I logged into my account. Everything was still there. Relief washed over me. I started a transfer to an old payroll card I barely used, entered the number, the full amount, confirmed with the code from the text message. The little loading circle spun and spun. Then, a red message popped up. Just one small window. Transaction denied. Your accounts have been temporarily frozen due to a report of suspicious activity, filed by your lawful husband, Elias Sterling. I stared at the screen. In that moment, in the dim back room of my own flower shop, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. And I was not a wife. I was a target. I don't know how long I sat in that back room, staring at the red notification on my laptop. Accounts frozen. Report filed by your lawful husband. Lawful. What a word. Just an hour earlier, that word had felt warm, safe. Now, it felt like a noose. I tried again. Another transfer. Denied. Again. Denied. Every time the red banner flashed, a part of my life disappeared. He had thought of everything. That realization came slowly, crawling over my skin like something cold and alive. He hadn't panicked at the restaurant. He hadn't wondered where I went. He hadn't begged me to come back. because he already had the next steps lined up. My money, my home, my life. I shut the laptop with shaking hands. I wanted to scream, or throw something, or fall apart. But something inside me had hardened, a knot of pure survival. You have to get to your apartment, I whispered to myself. The one thing he can't take is the place you grew up in. At least, that's what I believed at the time. I picked up my bag, stuffed Elsa's money deeper inside, wrapped my coat tighter around myself, and stepped out into the cold night. The streets were almost empty. My shadow stretched long under the streetlights, and every passing car made me flinch. I didn't know if Elias had already sent someone. I didn't know what he was capable of anymore. By the time the cab turned onto my street, my hands were numb from clutching my bag too tightly. The old building looked the same. Peeling paint, the giant maple tree in front, the cracked stone steps. But something felt wrong. Off. I climbed the stairs faster than I ever had, my breath catching in my throat. 3rd floor. Apartment 27. My door. I pulled out my keys with trembling hands. The first key slid halfway in, then hit something hard. I frowned, turned it, tried again. Still stuck. My heartbeat picked up. Maybe the key was bent. Maybe my hands were shaking too much. I tried the 2nd lock. Same thing. 3rd. Same. No. No. I tried again, forcing the key, until the metal scraped painfully against the lock. Then, a horrible thought hit me. Someone had stuffed the locks. I stepped back, my breath fogging in the hallway. This was my home, my parents' home, their photos, their old books, my bed, my memories. I raised my fist and knocked. Open up! Please, open the door! Nothing. My knock turned into pounding, then kicking. This is my apartment. Do you hear me? It's mine. The echo of my own scream filled the stairwell. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, a lock clicked. Not mine. The door across the landing. Tamara Davis, my childhood neighbor, poked her head out. Her hair was in rollers, her eyes full of confusion. Lydia? Honey, what on earth? Tamara, I gasped. I can't get in. My keys won't work. Someone blocked the locks. Before she could respond, a click. Behind me. My door, but not by my hand. Standing inside was a woman I had never seen in my life. Late 50s, faded bathrobe, cheap slippers, hair in a messy bun. She looked at me like I was the intruder. "What do you want?" she asked, annoyed. "You woke up half the building. Stop banging like a lunatic. People live here." For a moment, I just stared. "Excuse me?" I whispered. "This is my apartment." She snorted. Her eyes ran up and down my body with disdain. "I rent this place, from Mrs. Sterling. Who are you?" It felt like someone had hit me. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, this is my home, my parents' home. I never rented it out. More doors opened behind me. Old Mr. Nelson from the 5th floor, the young couple from the 4th. Curious eyes, whispers. And then, Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing up the stairwell. I turned. My blood turned to ice. Elias and his mother, Johanna Sterling, were standing on the stairs. Elias looked calm, concerned even, as if he was the victim. Johanna, elegant, dignified, composed, walked with her hands folded like she was entering a council meeting. "Please," Elias said gently to the neighbors, "my wife is going through a difficult time. She's overwhelmed. This isn't her fault." He stepped closer. Johanna moved beside me, placing a cold, maternal hand on my arm. "Lydia, darling, come home with us," she murmured. "You're confused. Elias told me everything. The stress, the debts." "What debts?" I snapped. "What lies are you telling?" Tamara gasped. The neighbors stared at me with pity and suspicion. Elias sighed the way a tired husband sighs when his wife is embarrassing him. "Lydia, I didn't want to do this in public," he said softly, opening the leather briefcase in his hand. Inside was a neatly organized folder. He took out several stapled sheets. Legal documents. He held one up. It was a notarized sales contract. My name. My apartment address. My parents' home. Sold to Johanna Sterling. "What is this?" I breathed. He didn't answer. He simply turned the last page toward me. The signature at the bottom? My signature. My handwriting. Brooks, Lydia. I felt my stomach drop. "No," I whispered. "No, this is fake. I never—" And then the memory hit me like a train. 2 nights ago, on the couch, watching a movie, Elias bringing a stack of papers. "Utilities, sweetheart. Update forms after the wedding. Just sign here and here." He had kissed my forehead. I had smiled and signed. Without reading. Without suspecting. Without knowing, I was signing away my parents' home. Behind me, the woman in the bathrobe folded her arms. "I rent from Mrs. Sterling. I have a contract. Everything is legal," she said proudly. I looked around at the hallway filled with familiar faces and saw only doubt in their eyes. "She doesn't know what she's saying," Johanna said softly to them. "It's been a difficult time. She's under stress." Elias placed a gentle hand on my back. "Come on, Lydia, let's go home." That touch, that gentle, soft touch, felt like poison on my skin. I jerked away. "Don't touch me!" The neighbors gasped. Then the mask fell from Elias's face for a fraction of a second. And I saw it. The thing Elsa had seen. The thing her daughter had seen. A predator. Johanna stepped forward. "Lydia, don't be childish." Something inside me broke. A raw animal fear tore through my chest. I ran. Down the stairs, skipping steps, slamming into the door, out into the street, into the cold night. I didn't stop until I reached the next block, chest burning, tears blurring my vision. By the time I slid down against a brick wall, I had nothing left. Nothing. No home, no money, no husband, no reputation, no proof. Just Elsa's money. And my shattered breath. I didn't know how long I cried. Eventually, the sobs faded into a dull ache. I opened my phone with trembling hands, scrolling through contacts, and stopped at one name. Elsa Miller. The only person who had warned me. The only person who had nothing to gain. I called. She answered on the 5th ring. a shaky voice. "Hello? Elsa?" I whispered. "Please, I need help." "Give me your address," she said. "I'm coming." Her voice was firmer than I had ever heard it. Elsa did not ask many questions on the phone, just my location. By then, I had dragged myself into a cheap hostel I'd found on my phone. Stale air, peeling paint, a mattress that squeaked every time I breathed. I didn't have the courage to go to a friend's place. I didn't know what Elias had already told the world about me. It's strange how quickly your identity can be stolen. In a few hours, I had gone from newlywed florist to hysterical thief with mental problems in their story. 40 minutes later, there was a knock on the door of that depressing little room. I opened it, and there she was. Elsa looked smaller without her coat, wrapped in a plain cardigan, a simple scarf around her neck. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep or too much crying. It was hard to tell which was which. She stepped inside, closed the door quietly, then just looked at me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she did something no one else had done for me that entire day. She simply opened her arms. I fell into them like a child. She hugged me tightly, awkwardly, smelling of herbs and old fabric softener, and I felt something in my chest loosen enough for air to move again. "Come home with me," she said softly into my hair. "You don't belong here. Not tonight." I don't remember the ride to her apartment very well, just the quiet streetlights and the feeling of sitting beside someone who had no reason to help me, and yet did. Her apartment was small but unnaturally neat. Bookshelves, small potted herbs, lace curtains. Family photos on the walls. Not expensive, just deeply loved. One face appeared again and again. A young woman with bright eyes and a big open smile, in a graduation gown, with a school ribbon, with a bouquet of orange gerberas. My gerberas. "That's her, isn't it?" I said quietly, sinking into a kitchen chair. Elsa followed my gaze and nodded. "Vera," she whispered. "My daughter." The kettle whistled softly behind her, but she didn't move for a moment. She just stood there, fingers pressed to the edge of the table as if to steady herself. "She loved your shop," Elsa said finally, pouring water into 2 mugs. "Said you always chose flowers like they were people, not objects, that you made colors talk." I swallowed hard. "And she..." My voice broke. "She married him too, didn't she?" Elsa sat down opposite me, both hands wrapped around her mug as if she were cold inside. "Yes," she said, "the same way you did. Sudden, charming, attentive, too perfect." She stared at a point beyond my shoulder as she spoke. "He was everywhere all of a sudden, calling, picking her up from work, bringing her gifts. 3 months later, he proposed. I was worried it was too fast, but Vera was so happy. She told me, 'Mama, for once in my life, let something be easy.' She had a small studio, left to her by her grandmother. After they married, he started talking about a bigger place. 'We'll need more space for kids,' he said. 'The bank will give a better mortgage if the property is in my name, just a formality.'" Elsa's lips tightened. "She signed, just like you did. Just like I would have done at her age, if I'm honest." She looked at me, her eyes suddenly sharp. "A month later, they went out on a boat," he said. "A storm came up. She fell into the water. Couldn't swim well. He tried to save her, of course, but tragedy." My stomach turned. "The police believed him?" I whispered. They wanted to, Elsa said bitterly. He was the grieving widower with the perfect story. No witnesses, no video, nothing that contradicted his version. And he had papers. All neat, all legal. The apartment passed to him as a widower. He sold it 3 weeks after the funeral. Her hands trembled as she took a sip of tea. I didn't believe him for a second, not one. I started digging on my own, slowly, too slowly. By the time I understood his pattern, he had already found you. I looked down at my hands. Floral cuts, stems, scars, working hands. The idea that all of this, my love, my home, my life, was just number 8 in a sequence made me feel nauseous. But how? I asked. The contracts looked real, the stamps, the notary, everything. You can't just fabricate all that, can you? Elsa let out a humorless laugh. Oh, he can't. But she can. Johanna, I breathed. Elsa nodded slowly. Deputy Chair of the Metropolitan Housing Authority, the woman who signs off on registrations, monitors property transfers, approves documentation, and guards the archives. Her whole public life is about protecting citizens' housing rights. She paused, then added with a grim smile. And behind the scenes, she manufactures legal graves for people's homes. I felt sick, like the room was tilting. So she, what? Forges signatures? Falsifies registrations? She doesn't need to forge them, Elsa said quietly. That's the genius of it. She makes you sign real documents under innocent pretexts. Then she rearranges, fills in, certifies, gives everything a beautiful legal shape. If you went to the police right now, do you know where they'd send the file to verify your story? To her office, her own desk. She would confirm that you voluntarily sold your apartment, with a stamp, with a signature, with a straight face. I leaned back in the chair. Hopelessness is a physical feeling. It sits on your chest like weight. So that's it, I whispered. There's nothing we can do? I'm just done? For a moment, Elsa didn't answer. Then she put her mug down and said, There is always something we can do, but this time we have to be smarter than they are. Her voice had changed, no longer just grief-stricken. Focused. We need proof, I said, almost to myself. Something that doesn't go through her hands. Elsa nodded. There are rumors about a ledger, a private notebook she keeps. Not on a computer, not in the public system. She's paranoid, so she writes everything down. Names, addresses, who lost what, who died how. My nephew heard about it from someone who used to clean her office. They called it the Gray Ledger. If it exists, I said slowly, it's the one piece they can't erase easily. Elsa looked at me carefully. Even if we find it, she said, we'll need someone to help us navigate. Someone who knows you, who won't believe Elias's version of you as a crazy thief. A face flashed in my mind. Val. Quiet, soft-spoken Val who had been my assistant at the flower shop for years. She knew me, knew my habits, knew how I triple-counted every cash transaction, how I stayed late to fix little mistakes no one else even noticed. My colleague, I said. Valerie. Val. I trust her. Elsa hesitated. They might be watching the shop, watching your friends. I know, I said. That's why I won't go near the shop. I'll meet her somewhere neutral. And I'll use your phone, not mine. I slid Elsa's old cell phone across the table. I dialed Val's number. She picked up almost immediately. Lydia? Oh, thank God. Her voice sounded breathless. Where are you?
Your Elias came to the shop this morning saying you ran away, that you're unwell. I didn't know what to believe. Val, listen to me very carefully, I cut her off, trying to steady my voice. I'm not sick. I'm not a thief. And I'm not safe. I can't explain everything on the phone, but my life is in danger. I need to see you, alone. 1 hour from now. The park behind the market. The bench near the fountain. Please, just come, and don't tell anyone. There was a pause. Then Val said without hesitation, I'll be there. I hung up, exhaled shakily, and slid the phone back to Elsa. Are you sure about this? No, I said honestly. But she's my only chance. An hour later, wrapped in Elsa's old coat, a scarf pulled over my hair, I slipped out of the apartment and made my way through side streets, my heart pounding at every corner. I knew I should go directly to the park, but my feet betrayed me. They pulled me past my flower shop. Just a glimpse, I told myself, just to see it once more, from outside. As I turned the corner, I saw the crowd. 10, maybe 15 people clustered around the shop entrance. A car with a local newspaper logo, a photographer adjusting his camera, a reporter with a notepad, and right in the center of it all, in a perfectly tailored suit, makeup flawless, smiles soft and sincere, Joanna Sterling. My breath hitched. She stood in front of a microphone, the shop window, my shop window, as a backdrop. That's why we at the Housing Authority are committed to supporting small businesses. Citizens like these hardworking entrepreneurs are the backbone of our city. We must protect them. I wanted to scream. Protect them. She had stolen my apartment, my life, and now she was using my shop as a stage for her hypocrisy.
And then her eyes lifted and met mine through the crowd. For a single heartbeat, I saw recognition. Then her face rearranged itself into something else, warm relief. "Lydia, my dear," she cried loudly, pushing through the people toward me. "Thank goodness you're safe." Heads turned. The reporter's pen froze. The cameras rotated. She grabbed my hands in hers, cold steel under soft skin, and turned me subtly toward the journalist. "Look, here she is, our poor girl, confused, under such stress. She ran away yesterday, influenced by a grief-stricken old woman who doesn't know what she's saying. But it's all right now. Lydia, please, come home. Elias forgives you for taking the money. We know you didn't understand what you were doing." In one sentence, she'd done it. Painted me as unstable. A thief. Manipulated. Dangerous to herself. The reporter scribbled furiously. The photographer snapped pictures of the concerned official and the disheveled, unstable woman. The door to the shop opened. Peter Walsh, the owner, stepped out, took one look at the circus, and his face turned red with anger. "Brooks, what the hell are you doing? A scandal in front of my store? My name in the paper next to theft and madness? You're fired. Do you understand? Fired." He grabbed my arm roughly and dragged me away from the entrance. "Get out of here. Take your drama somewhere else." He shoved me so hard I stumbled. As I tried to regain my balance, I passed right in front of Val. She was pale as a sheet, eyes wide with horror. Our hands brushed for just a second. I felt something cold and metallic slide into my palm. Val squeezed my fingers around it and whispered, so quietly I'd barely heard it. "I'm so sorry. My cousin works as a cleaner at the Housing Authority. Johanna's paranoid. She keeps everything important in her office, including a gray ledger. This is her office key."
Don't tell anyone where you got it, please. My heart stopped. I closed my hand around the key like it was oxygen. By the time I looked up again, Johanna was already getting into a sleek black government car, her performance complete. The narrative was set. I was a thief. She was helping a troubled young wife. No job, no home, no money, no reputation. But in my hand, I held a key. Literally. The key to her office. Maybe to her secrets. Maybe to my life. I walked away from the crowd quickly, not running, just moving with grim, focused speed. By the time I reached Elsa's apartment again, my palm had a red mark where the key had been pressed too hard. I walked into the kitchen, opened my fist, and let the key fall onto the table with a dull clink. Elsa stared at it, then at me. "What is that?" she whispered. "It's a key," I said, my voice hoarse. "To her office."
Elsa picked up the key with trembling fingers, weighing it like something both fragile and explosive. "Val gave this to you?" she asked. I nodded, then told her everything. The reporters, the public accusation, my firing, Johanna's oh-so-concerned performance. By the time I finished, Elsa's face had changed. The heaviness was still there, but underneath it burned something else. Rage. "The gray ledger," she repeated. "If it exists, it has to be in that office. And if even half of what my nephew has heard is true, that book is our only real chance." I sank into the chair. "And how exactly do you suggest we get into the office of the deputy chair of the housing authority? Ring the bell and ask nicely?" Elsa looked at me in a way I hadn't seen before. Determined. Sharp. Almost ruthless. "No," she said. "We go when she's not there." "Breaking in?" I blurted. "Elsa, that's insane. It's a government building. Cameras, guards, alarms. If they catch us..." She cut me off. "If they catch you, what more can they take?" she asked quietly. "They took your apartment, your money, your job, your good name. They tried to take your sanity and almost your life. They took my daughter. Lydia, we are already in the worst-case scenario. There's only one thing they don't have yet." She glanced at the key. "The truth. And this might be our last chance to grab it." I looked down at my hands. She was right. I was already ruined in their story. The only thing left to decide was whether I stayed a silent victim or became a dangerous one. "Fine," I said slowly. "We go tonight." We spent the afternoon planning. Elsa pulled out an old city map from a drawer, creases from years of folding. We spread it on the kitchen table like a war plan. The housing authority building took up an entire block in a grim gray rectangle. "It's an old building," Elsa said. 1950s. Back when they didn't care about aesthetics. My nephew said there's a staff entrance in the inner yard. Cleaners and technical staff use it at night. If we're lucky, they'll wedge the door open. We decided to go late, around 11. Too late for normal employees, early enough that the cleaners would still be around. We dressed in dark, unremarkable clothes. I put the key into my pocket. It felt strangely heavy against my thigh, like a constant reminder, you are really going to do this. The city at night feels different when you're about to break into a government building. Less like home, more like a judgmental witness. We walked, avoiding the main avenues. Every siren in the distance made my shoulders tense. Every police car felt like it was already looking for us. When the building finally appeared in front of us, it looked even uglier than on the map. A huge block of concrete and glass, barely lit like a sleeping animal. We slipped into the inner courtyard. 2 large trash containers, a metal door with a small awning. We hid in the shadows. A few minutes later, 2 women in cleaning uniforms walked up, smoking and chatting about someone's husband. One of them pushed the door open, then casually stuck a brick between the frame and the metal to keep it from closing. "God bless laziness," Elsa murmured. We waited until they had vanished down the corridor, then slipped in. Inside, the air smelled of chlorine and bureaucracy. The hallway stretched long and quiet, lit by tired fluorescent lights. Somewhere in the distance, a floor polisher hummed. We moved in the opposite direction. Every step echoed. Every door plaque felt like a warning. Privatization department. Archive. Legal. We turned up the stairwell and climbed to the 3rd floor. Finally, there it was. A door with a polished nameplate. Sterling. Johanna. Deputy Chair. My heart pounded so loud I was sure someone could hear it. I pulled the key from my pocket, my hands sweating. The metal slid into the lock as if it had always belonged there. A soft click. The door opened. We slipped inside and closed it behind us. The office looked like a magazine photo. Immaculate. Controlled. Soulless. A heavy dark wood desk. Papers in perfect stacks, a leather chair pushed in exactly straight, shelves with law books and neatly labeled binders, certificates and plaques on the walls. No family photos, no personal touches. This wasn't a place for living. It was a place for power. "Search," Elsa whispered. We moved quickly but carefully. I took the desk, top drawer, pens, stamps, paperclips. Second, filed property transfer forms. All clean, all legal. Third, notebooks filled with neat daily notes, but nothing like a secret ledger. Elsa went through the shelves. Law codes, urban planning manuals, housing statutes, thick, heavy books that looked like they could knock someone unconscious, but contained nothing we needed. 10 minutes, 15, 20. Sweat trickled down my back. What if Val was wrong? I muttered. What if she moved it somewhere else? What if... Elsa rapped her knuckles lightly against one of the walls. "Empty," she murmured. I looked up. It was the wall opposite the desk, covered in framed certificates and photos. Johanna shaking hands with the mayor, receiving awards, speaking at conferences. A wall of glory. My florist's eye caught it first. One of the larger frames, Johanna with the county executive, hung just a little crooked, barely a few millimeters, but in a room this obsessively symmetrical, it screamed at me. "Wait," I said, stepping closer. Instead of just straightening the photo, I grabbed the frame with both hands and pulled gently. It moved. A click. A hidden hinge. The frame swung out. Behind it, embedded in the wall, was a small safe. Elsa sucked in a breath. "Of course," she whispered. "Paranoid people don't trust filing cabinets." The safe had a simple circular combination lock. "We're finished," Elsa said. "We'll never guess it. It could be birthdays, codes, random numbers." I wasn't listening. My gaze had drifted to a bronze plaque hanging next to the safe. Metropolitan Housing Authority, founded in 1955. I almost laughed.
People like her never use random numbers. They use something they think is important. I gripped the dial and carefully turned it. 1955. Something clicked inside. I pulled the handle. The safe opened. Inside, on a single metal shelf, lay one item. A thick, gray, hardbound notebook. Plain cover, no title. The Gray Ledger. My fingers shook as I lifted it out and laid it on the desk between us. We opened it. The pages were ruled into columns. Name, property address, perpetrator, status, notes. In the perpetrator column, the same name repeated over and over in clean, careful handwriting. Sterling E. J. Elias. The first entry, the second, the third. Elsa leaned over my shoulder. Under entry number 3, we saw it. Her daughter's name, Vera Jones. The address of her studio apartment. In the status column, accident, property realized. Her hand flew to her mouth. A choked sound escaped her. I turned the pages. Entry number 4, 5, 6, 7. Different names, different addresses. Notes like overdose, vanished, traffic accident. 8 entries in total. The last one, number 8, Brooks. L. My parents' address. Status, in progress. It was like being turned into a to-do item in someone's planner. Not a wife, not a person. Just number 8, finish extracting asset. My vision blurred for a moment. This is it, I whispered. This is enough to bury them both. Or get us both killed. We can't take the ledger. They'll know immediately. We have to copy it, every page. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked, the battery low. But the camera still works, I murmured. Please just hold on a little longer. I started taking photos. Page after page. Click, click, click. My hands were shaking so much, some shots blurred and I had to redo them. Elsa hovered beside me, her fingers gripping my shoulder as if to keep herself upright. Faster, honey, faster. We were about halfway through when we heard it. Footsteps. Not the slow, tired steps of cleaners. Firm, confident, rapid, coming straight toward the office. We froze. The safe, Elsa hissed. But not by my hand. Standing inside was a woman I had never seen in my life. Late 50s, faded bathrobe, cheap slippers, hair in a messy bun. She looked at me like I was the intruder. "What do you want?" she asked, annoyed. "You woke up half the building. Stop banging like a lunatic. People live here." For a moment, I just stared. "Excuse me?" I whispered. "This is my apartment." She snorted. Her eyes ran up and down my body with disdain. "I rent this place, from Mrs. Sterling. Who are you?" It felt like someone had hit me. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, this is my home, my parents' home. I never rented it out. More doors opened behind me. Old Mr. Nelson from the 5th floor, the young couple from the 4th. Curious eyes, whispers. And then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing up the stairwell. I turned. My blood turned to ice. Elias and his mother, Johanna Sterling, were standing on the stairs. Elias looked calm.
concerned even, as if he was the victim. Johanna, elegant, dignified, composed, walked with her hands folded like she was entering a council meeting. "Please," Elias said, gently to the neighbors, "my wife is going through a difficult time. She's overwhelmed. This isn't her fault." He stepped closer. Johanna moved beside me, placing a cold, maternal hand on my arm. "Lydia, darling, come home with us," she murmured. "You're confused. Elias told me everything. The stress, the debts." "What debts?" I snapped. "What lies are you telling?" Tamara gasped. The neighbors stared at me with pity and suspicion. Elias sighed the way a tired husband sighs when his wife is embarrassing him. "Lydia, I didn't want to do this in public," he said softly, opening the leather briefcase in his hand. Inside was a neatly organized folder. He took out several stapled sheets. Legal documents. He held one up. It was a notarized sales contract. My name. My apartment address. My parents' home. Sold to Johanna Sterling. "What is this?" I breathed. He didn't answer. He simply turned the last page toward me. The signature at the bottom? My signature. My handwriting. Brooks, Lydia. I felt my stomach drop. "No," I whispered. "No, this is fake. I never—" And then the memory hit me like a train. 2 nights ago, on the couch, watching a movie, Elias bringing a stack of papers. "Utilities, sweetheart. Update forms after the wedding. Just sign here and here." He had kissed my forehead. I had smiled and signed. Without reading. Without suspecting. Without knowing, I was signing away my parents' home. Behind me, the woman in the bathrobe folded her arms. "I rent from Mrs. Sterling. I have a contract. Everything is legal," she said proudly. I looked around at the hallway filled with familiar faces and saw only doubt in their eyes. "She doesn't know what she's saying," Johanna said softly to them. "It's been a difficult time. She's under stress." Elias placed a gentle hand on my back. "Come on, Lydia, let's go home." That touch, that gentle, soft touch, felt like poison on my skin. I jerked away. "Don't touch me!" The neighbors gasped. Then the mask fell from Elias's face for a fraction of a second. And I saw it. I grabbed the ledger, shoved it back into the safe, spun the dial randomly. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. The key turned. Not my key. Her key. The door flew open. Elias stood there. He was wearing a black turtleneck and jeans instead of a suit. But without the polish, he looked more dangerous, like a wolf without the sheep's clothing. His eyes darted from Elsa, to me, to the half-open hidden frame, to the safe, then to my phone in my hand. All the practiced warmth drained from his face. "You," he said, and that one word was full of pure hatred. Behind him, someone moved. Val. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked at me like someone looking at a person they've just betrayed. "I'm sorry, Lydia," she choked out. "They found out about my cousin. They threatened my family. I didn't know what to do." Elias shoved her aside so hard she stumbled against the wall and slid down, sobbing. He stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. For a second, no one moved. Then he lunged at me. He grabbed my wrist so hard my fingers spasmed and the phone slipped. His other hand tangled painfully in my hair, yanking my head back. "You think you're smart? You think you can ruin everything? You owe me your life.
Without me, you were nothing. I will erase you so completely, nobody will even remember your name." He reached for the phone on the floor with his foot, trying to crush it. And then, something happened he hadn't accounted for. Elsa moved. The frail, quiet old woman with the shaking hands grabbed the heavy glass water carafe from the side table, lifted it with surprising strength, and smashed it down onto his head with a dull, sickening sound. He staggered. The grip on my hair loosened, his eyes glazed for a moment, and he crumpled to his knees. "Run!" Elsa shouted. "Lydia, run!" I snatched the phone from the floor. We bolted out of the office, past Val curled on the ground, down the corridor. Behind us, I heard him roar, "Security! 3rd floor! Stop them! They're here!" We flew down the stairs, feet hammering the steps. 2nd floor. 1st floor. We reached the main entrance. Huge glass doors. Chained. Padlocked for the night. We were trapped. "There!" a voice shouted behind us. "Stop!" "This way!" Elsa rasped, yanking me toward a small door under the staircase. A metal sign read, "Utility." The door was unlocked. We stumbled into a tiny closet crammed with mops, buckets, and the sour smell of cleaning chemicals. "What now?" I whispered, chest burning. Footsteps thundered in the corridor outside. Elsa turned to me. Her expression had changed completely. No fear, no panic, just a terrible, quiet resolve. She said, "Now you do exactly what I tell you." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. She grabbed my shoulders. "They're looking for the ledger and for whoever saw it. You have the photos, the proof. That means you are the only one that matters now." "What are you talking about?" I cried. "We both." She pushed me deeper into the closet. "I'll hold them off," she said. "No, Elsa, you can't." But she didn't let me finish. She shut the door. I heard the rusty lock turn from the outside. I pounded on it with my fists. "Elsa, open the door. Please, don't do this." Voices outside. Shouts. Heavy footsteps. Then Elias's voice full of fury. "She's here. Grab her. Where's the other one?" I pressed my eye to the keyhole. 2 big men grabbed her arms. She didn't struggle. She just straightened her back and stared Elias in the face. "Where is she?" he snarled. Elsa said nothing. He signaled to the guards. They dragged her away. For a fraction of a second, she turned her head toward the closet. I swear I saw her wink. Then she was gone, and I was alone, locked in a dark, airless closet, clutching a phone that suddenly felt heavier than the entire building. I spent the rest of the night on that cold concrete floor, my back against a shelf of cleaning supplies, eyes open in the dark. I didn't cry. There was nothing left to cry out. Just one phrase echoing in my head with every heartbeat. "Tomorrow, noon, Civic Center. Show them." Elsa had walked into the lion's mouth so I could stand on a stage. I had no right to waste that. At dawn, I heard cleaners outside, chatting, complaining about the lock sticking again. Eventually, someone fiddled with it, turned a key. The door opened. The woman in the uniform froze when she saw me. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "Got locked in by accident," I said quickly, pushing past her before she could think too much. "Long story, I need to get to work." I walked out of that building without looking back. The sky was gray. The air, cold. I didn't feel like a free woman. I felt like a weapon that had finally realized it was loaded. There were only a few hours until noon. Time to use it. The first thing I did was find a coffee shop. Not because I wanted coffee, because I needed an outlet. My phone battery was dangerously low after the photos. I ordered the cheapest drink on the menu just to justify sitting there and plugging in my charger. While the phone came back to life, I searched online. It didn't take long. Civic Center Auditorium, ceremony for outstanding service to the city. 12 p.m., main guest, the mayor. Award recipient, Deputy Chair of the Metropolitan Housing Authority, Johanna Sterling. Perfect. Next, I found a small print shop 3 blocks away. Using some of Elsa's cash, I had every single page of the gray ledger photos printed on clean white sheets, large and sharp enough that names, addresses, and that damning perpetrator, Sterling E.J., were crystal clear. I made 5 sets. I slipped them into simple folders. Then, I made a call I never thought I would make. In Elsa's old paper notebook, there was a number labeled Mark Vera's, her nephew. He answered on the second ring. Hello? My name is Lydia Brooks. I am a friend of Elsa's. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. There's no time to explain everything. I know what happened to Vera. I have proof. Johanna and Elias did the same thing to me, almost. Today, at noon, Civic Center Auditorium. Bring the biggest portrait of Vera you have. And if Elsa ever told you about other families, other people who lost relatives after dealing with Elias, call them. Tell them to come. I hung up before he could bombard me with questions. Instead, I slipped the phone and the folders into my bag and headed toward the Civic Center. My legs didn't feel completely stable, but they were moving. When I reached the auditorium, the steps were already crowded with well-dressed guests, journalists, and TV crews. Inside, the hall buzzed with polite conversation and the rustle of fancy clothing. I must have looked like an intruder. Bruised beach bone, second-day clothes, hair pulled back in a half-hearted attempt at order. No one stopped me.
Everyone assumed I had a right to be there. That's one thing about official events. If you walk with enough purpose, people assume you belong. The hall was almost full. Red velvet seats. A stage with a long table where the mayor and other officials sat. Johanna was there too, in a bright, elegant suit, smiling as she chatted with someone. Seeing her there, so calm, so radiant, moments after sending guards after Elsa, it filled me with a rage that was almost blinding. I walked down the central aisle. About halfway to the stage, 2 men in dark suits stepped into my path. Security. "Ma'am, you can't go closer," one of them said firmly. "Please take your seat." I opened my mouth to argue, but someone else spoke first. "Let her through." The voice came from the front row. A man stood up. Simple worker's jacket, rough hands. I recognized him from a photo Elsa had once shown me. Mark, Vera's nephew? He turned around, his face tight with anger. "My father's apartment," he said loud than enough for the hall to hear, "is also listed in that gray ledger she's holding." Silence spread. Real silence. The kind that eats up sound. The security guards hesitated. Up on stage, the mayor shot Johanna a questioning look. Her smile faltered for the first time since I'd met her. That single second of hesitation was all I needed. I walked past the guards, up the few steps onto the stage, and took the microphone from the stunned master of ceremonies. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. My knees wanted to buckle, but my voice when I spoke was surprisingly steady. I said, "My name is Lydia Brooks," and the speakers carried my words to the entire hall. 2 weeks ago, I married this man. I pointed straight at Elias, sitting in the second row, a white bandage peeking under his hair where Elsa's carafe had hit him. His face twisted. "She's crazy," he yelled, jumping up. "She needs help. She stole from us, and now she's making up stories. Someone called the police." "Good idea,"
I said evenly, not taking my eyes off the crowd. A murmur rose. Some people shifted uncomfortably. Cameras turned toward me. Yesterday, my husband and his mother threw me out of my own apartment. They blocked my bank accounts. They filed papers that claim I voluntarily sold my parents' home to the Honorable Mrs. Sterling here. I lifted one of the folders. According to them, I'm an unstable thief with a nervous breakdown. According to this, I'm number 8. I opened the folder and held up the first sheet so those in front could see. Mrs. Sterling keeps a private ledger in her office, a gray book where she writes down people like me, people like Vera. I looked toward the back of the hall. The doors opened. Several people entered, carrying a large framed portrait. Vera's smiling face looked out over the crowd. "That's my sister," Mark shouted, his voice breaking. "She fell from a boat a month after marrying him. They called it an accident. Our aunt never believed it." Whispers turned into exclamations. I began to read. Entry number 1. James Harrison, born 1948. 2-bedroom apartment on Gerda Street. Status: vanished without a trace. Property realized. Perpetrator: Sterling E. J. A man in the front row stood up slowly, face pale. He said, "That's my father. He disappeared. They said he left on his own." I turned the page. Entry number 2. Samantha Green, studio on Peace Avenue. Status: traffic accident. Property realized. Perpetrator: Sterling E. J. Someone in the middle rows slammed a hand on the seat in front of them. I continued. Entry number 3. Vera Jones, small studio apartment. Status: accident. Property realized. Sobs burst from the back where Vera's portrait was being held high. The hall was no longer an audience. It was a jury, witnessing a crime unfold in front of them. Entry number 8, I said finally. Brooks, Lydia, my parents' apartment. Status: in progress. I lowered the paper. This is what service to the city looks like to Mrs. Sterling. 8 lives, 8 homes, all legally cleaned, registered, processed, and sold. Lies, Johanna finally snapped, standing so abruptly her chair scraped. This is slander, some forged nonsense. I will sue. Wonderful, I said. The original book is in your wall safe, behind your wall of honor. I photographed every page. These, I held up the folder, are copies. You can sue me after the police compare them with the original ledger. And, oh, your son-in-law here, I nodded towards Elias, is already on record in your own handwriting as the perpetrator of every single entry. A collective intake of breath filled the hall. The mayor looked like he was going to throw up. He turned to the chief of police sitting on the stage and murmured something quickly. The chief stood up, signaled his officers. They moved. 2 officers approached the stage from the side, pushing cameras out of their way. They first came to me. I handed one of them a folder. All names, addresses, dates are there. The photos are time-stamped. My phone is in my bag. Take it. Copy everything. But don't you dare send it to the housing authority for verification. Have your own forensic team compare it to the ledger in her safe. The officer nodded, face grave. Then they moved toward Johanna. She held up a badge, sputtering about her position, her authority, her years of service. Her voice climbed higher with every sentence. They still put handcuffs on her. No ceremony, no gentle escort. Just click. Metal on wrists. For a moment, her eyes met mine. The perfect facade had shattered. All that was left was naked, helpless hatred. Another pair of officers went for Elias. He tried to run, shoving people aside, curses flying from his mouth. They tackled him halfway down the aisle, forced his hands behind his back, and hauled him to his feet as he spit rage. As they dragged him out, I felt my knees finally weaken. I leaned against the side of the stage, my hands shaking. Mark came up to me. He didn't say much, just, "Thank you. For my aunt. For Vera. For all of them." I nodded. "Thank Elsa. She's the one who walked into their jaws so I could be here."
The days after that blurred. The district attorney's office opened a full investigation. The gray ledger was removed from Johanna's office under official seal. Every entry matched my prints. Every property transfer led back to the same pattern. Elsa was released. All charges against her, assault, trespassing, whatever they had tried to stick on her, were dropped. She came to my apartment 1 week after the scandal broke. My apartment. The court had already begun reversing property transactions tied to fraudulent schemes. Mine was among the first. We unlocked the door together. It still smelled faintly of fried potatoes and cheap air freshener from the woman in the bathrobe. But that smell didn't stand a chance against what came next. I went to the shop, my shop, where the owner had called me 3 times to apologize and beg me to return. I walked past the counter, into the cooled storage, and picked out arms full of white lilies, eucalyptus, and baby's breath. Back home, I filled vases, cut stems, arranged each bouquet with slow, deliberate care. With every flower I placed, every stem I trimmed, it felt like I was rinsing something off the walls, off my skin, off my memories. Fear, shame, humiliation, helplessness. Petal by petal, I pushed them out. By evening, my apartment smelled of green and white and clean. Elsa sat on my old sofa, watching me with tired but softer eyes. "You did it," she said. "No," I replied, placing the last vase on the windowsill. "We did it. You, me, Vera. Even that scared girl I was 2 weeks ago." She smiled sadly. "She would be proud," she said, nodding toward the invisible presence of her daughter. I looked around my resurrected home. I wasn't the same woman who had happily signed papers on the couch while watching a movie. I wasn't the woman who thought a ring meant safety, or that the system would always protect the innocent. I was something else now. Someone who knew that evil didn't always look like a shadow in an alley. Sometimes it wore a suit, spoke softly, and had a stamp. And now, I'm here, telling you this story. Not as a tearful victim, as a woman in her 40s who survived being turned into a number in someone else's ledger. If you're listening to me right now and you feel trapped by a person, by a system, by a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore, I want you to remember something. You are not as powerless as they want you to believe. Sometimes the smallest decision to fight back, a call, a step, a word into a microphone, is enough to topple giants built on lies. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Those who hide their crimes behind respectability are terrified of the moment you stop being quiet. So don't be.